Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. While hoping that all of you had a very good 2024 and wishing you a very happy new year, I welcome all the participants and the guest speakers, whom I would briefly introduce also. They're all well known otherwise. I would here take a minute to refresh or remind our esteemed participants of our last social protection conference. SPRC holds an annual conference in December every year. And last year we had the conference where we had two main themes. The first one was the implications of continuing with what is called producerism, that in pursuit of excessive profits, you produce without a social purpose. And this in the process engenders more marginalization, further expanding informal economy. That's how we came to the second topic last year, that how to extend social protection to informal economy workers. And the difficulties that every country in developing world is facing to extend social protection to the informal economy workers, in particularly in those countries where the institutional social security coverage, which started in Pakistan as well as in other countries in 60s or 70s, which were focused more on the manufacturing sector. And it continued with the manufacturing sector, but even in the manufacturing sector, the coverage had been limited. As for example, in case of Pakistan, our manufacturing sector has shrunk significantly. Then on the line, we added income transfers, which was, of course, a welcome development. But how to take income transfers to informal economy workers, or to take comprehensive social security to the rest of the population out of the manufacturing sector. So we had a discussion on that. And now if we look back at 2024, we note, unfortunately, the continuity of the producerism or post-productionist perspective. Though we can see that the discourse of the growth in EU now has become much more significant. If we look at the elections in UK, for example, Labour government has returned in a big way. In US also, if we understand that now with MAGA, the homeland economics would become much more important. But what is Trump promising? Basically, more quality jobs for the white people, local people. So again, social policy. In Europe also, country after country, we have far right governments where it's not only far right, the far left is also with them. All of them have better future for them and their children, possibly at the cost of immigrants. So in that context, we can see that it's the return of social policy in a big way, and where there we would when Ms. Shirin touches the international context, we would have more on that aspect. Even in Canada or in India, the social policy has staged a comeback. Now, looking at our own local scene, as we all know that we had a big spike in inflation, which hit us badly, as well as disasters, particularly in Sindh. Now, the inflation has now, luckily it's down, though month on month, again, it's becoming a problem. But the kind of inflation that we had has put a big question mark on the nature of income transfers. Income transfers were introduced to reduce poverty, but now the kind of kafalat that we have, an average household family can hardly put food with this 3,500 only for a week, 10 days. So that basically means that our mainstay of a social protection system, that is income transfer, we cannot reasonably hope we would would hear more from Mr. Ali Shehzad, who is heading PSPA, and Mr. Rafique also. But if our coverage of PESI, of employee social security institutions, remains small, if Sehat Sahulat program is on and off, then that means our social protection system is struggling. At the policy level, at the level of system development, but with the stability of the current political dispensation, we see the provincial governments taking much bigger interest in the welfare of the ordinary people, and there are a lot of new services which are coming up. So while we were designing this year's SPRC Social Protection Conference, we wanted to, after touching the international scenario and learning from the international scenario in terms of development of policies, systems, and services, we wanted to focus on the two larger provinces of Pakistan, that is Sindh and Punjab, and we requested the heads of the respective departments and authorities to share with us what has been happening over the last 1 year, and where do their respective departments, that is Social Protection Department of Sindh and Punjab Social Protection Authority, go from here as we enter into 2025. In terms of redefining, if they are considering the social policy, the framework in which the social protection systems in principle should be rooted, and the services that they, what has been the effectiveness of the services that they offer during this 2024, and how do they plan to take these services in 2025 and beyond, or introduce new services. Remembering that IMF has been talking about decentering or provincializing social protection or income transfers, to be more precise. So in that context, recently there's not much movement, but a few months ago there was much more conversations on that aspect. Would like to hear more from both the provinces on that. Both the provinces are keen to have their own registries also. Now that is an extremely critical discussion in any country, where you approach social protection from poverty side, from charity side, and ignore work. There you're very keen somehow to profile your own people and their economic status, and then to give them transfers or other benefits in such a way that they are made to be seen as on the receiving end of the state's largesse, not expecting social security as a right which they have as a citizen, and to which they may even contribute, and the way it happens in terms of social security institutions. So today we are very happy that we would be able to have a quick review of the social protection landscape during 2024, and then what the 2025 and the next 2-3 years hold out for us. So our first speaker is our old support for Social Protection Resource Center, Ms. Shirin Sadozai, who herself is a big name in terms of social protection, her work on labor policy, her work on establishing social protection systems in other countries. I am privy to her work in the recent years, where she has established whole new systems, social protection systems abroad. So thank you very much, Shirin, for being with us. She runs her own consultancy company, and her international presence is also very impressive and old hand. So good to have you, Shirin, with us. We then have Mr. Rafique Sheikh with us, a good friend. I discovered him as a nice person and a very good professional while working on developing the domestic commerce policy of Sindh a few years before. A very hardworking officer of the Provincial Management Services of Sindh, and he recently also did pioneering work in establishing the Provincial Management Services Academy. So he is such a person who is known to have the capacity to introduce and consolidate new initiatives. So I was very personally happy, Rafique, when I came to know that you would be heading the Department of Social Protection in Sindh. So welcome. And then
Thank you
we
very
have
much.
our young, dynamic leader of Punjab Social Protection Authority, Ali Shehzad. He was perhaps in a meeting. Ali, if you're with us, we talk more about you, but very happy to have a young officer providing continuity and leadership to an extremely critical authority in Punjab with huge funds and huge mandate and responsibility. And the fourth speaker, as you know from the program, is our own Ms. Alishba Naeem, who is our disability lead. We wanted to share the work of SPRC during 2024 in particular. We have done a lot of work on disability and elderly. We are managing pro bono engagement with 5 federal government ministries to make Islamabad a better place for persons with disability and elderly. So here we have tried to have an optimum mix of policy, system approach, and services. And Ms. Alishba at the end would share that experience, which may be of interest to our colleagues from Sindh and Punjab also. So with this, we request Ms. Shirin to talk roughly in 10 minutes about the international scene before we go to the other speakers. Ms. Shirin, it's over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saab, and thank you everyone for having me here today. Just try to basically put into perspective. Obviously, the main idea of today's discussion is to see how we want to take things in Pakistan. So I try to sort of keep tying it down to that to the best of my ability, but really looking forward to colleagues from PSPA and the Sindh Authority as well, the Sindh Department rather, the Social Protection Department, to also learn as to what the next generation of social protection in Pakistan is. So just quick, if I were to just start off in terms of what has happened in social protection globally, I'm of course trying to package a lot and trying to package things that most of you would already be privy to, would know about it, would have read about it. But I think for me, the most important message probably that came out and was encapsulated very succinctly, but also very clearly in the World Social Protection Report 2024-2026 was that was the recognition that now social protection has to sort of take forward not just social justice, but climate justice. So those words, because words matter, terminology matters. So ILO in its report, and the report is called Universal Social Protection for a Just Transition. So that's I think that sort of tells us that we have made that recognition again, or we have gone back to that recognition, which was in the Universal Human Rights Declaration, which again talked about social security as, and we can go bilingual, Dr. Saab, is it okay? या अंग्रेजी में ही मैं चलती रहूं, आप मुझे बता दीजिए.
bilingual हूं,
bilingual, ठीक,
सारे
ठीक.
पाकिस्तानी.
हाँ, तो well, I was reading about how language and thinking also go together. So कई दफा it's when you're thinking bilingually, it's better to sort of speak bilingually as well. But I think the clear thing has been two aspects that social protection is now looking at being responsive to: climate justice as well as social justice. So then the title of the report, or the subtitle more aptly of the report, is Universal Social Protection for Climate Action and a Just Transition. So just transition, as we all know, is about the slow onset climate change, whereas when we're talking about things like loss and damage and all, it's about the more immediate disasters. So I'll come to that in a bit, but I think along with that, because it's climate justice and social justice, the other thing that I saw a lot happening, even though it was a lot of research demand, and then of course different players coming in and fulfilling that demand around gender transformative social protection. So that was another aspect that I think has come in. It had started a few years back. You'll see a few interesting pilots being highlighted, especially one from Nepal, which was unique in the sense that it actually gives social protection payments to single women, whether widowed, whether divorced, whether never married, but as opposed to most, or in an interesting comparison, let's say, with something like BISP, which I think it was a pioneer in sort of bringing forward the woman being the beneficiary of social protection. But the Nepal project has had a lot of research around impact on different gender aspects as well. But now one sees that across many other geographies as well. And along with that, then there is some of you might already be, there are a few very specific research facilities for social protection. One of them is SPARC, which is the Australian government one. The other is STAR, which is the FCDO one. And STAR has actually been bringing up something which is of interest then to the work that SPRC is doing, because they've been bringing up a lot of work for a rights-based social protection and care model. So when you're talking about disabilities, when you're talking about old age social protection, it cannot be done in isolation. Rafique Saab just mentioned, the need to bring to align some of these things, to link up, and that comes out very clearly when we are talking about the social justice element. So that the SDG mantra of leave no one behind. There, I think those linkages become very important. So, agar aapka different, I'm going to use that word very knowingly and very respectfully, Rafique Saab, and after that small comment, which is fragmentation, because agar aapke jo chote programs hai in terms of the sweet home, in terms of Ashiana, in terms of all of that, how is that linked up with the national or provincial social protection system? I think that's the direction that needs to be taken, and that's not just Pakistan. It is a recognition which is happening that all lower and middle income countries have these programs, have these initiatives, but they are not necessarily linked to the social protection system, and somehow these systems have to be linked up. And my memory is not very good, so I'm going to go to my notes a little bit. But I think the main thing sort of brings us back to the two, 3 points that we always make, Dr. Safdar, in SPRC conversations. You've probably heard me say them quite a bit, but if we have to take this forward, if we have to take social protection systems forward to be resilient, to be responsive, to be inclusive, then I want to just mention 3 things very quickly, or almost repeat the 3 things that I often mention in these places. But one, of course, is that by and large, Pakistan mein bhi and across the globe as well, and especially and it's interesting when we say across the board, actually it's not the higher income countries, it's the lower and middle income countries, which tells you that there is a certain discourse kisi ek jagah se bhi aa raha hai, which is that these are looked at as a poverty reduction strategy. Now, I mentioned the ILO report. ILO report ka ek message is very clear, which says that, the social protection is not just for poverty reduction, it's also a catalyst for sustainable development and social justice. As I mentioned, social justice is a theme within that very clearly. And then if we take it a step forward, the work that is coming on climate risk, climate resilience, what I understand from there and what I understand from the approach that I have somehow like it resonates with me more is the life cycle risk-based social protection. So if you look at it from a life cycle risk-based social protection system, then social protection is actually a risk management policy tool, because poverty doesn't happen just like that. Poverty happens because of either some idiosyncratic shock, or abhi climate ki wajah se zyada a covariate shock, or your different risks that anybody can face during your life cycle. And it depends whether you're able to, and the biggest among that is the theme that SPRC is taking forward, which can happen at any time in your life cycle, which is a disability. So these things just increase the cost. So actually, when we are developing social protection or designing social protection programs, if we think about it, we're actually managing for these risks somehow or the other. So it's a risk management tool, the result of which, the consequence of which is poverty reduction as well. I think that shift, what it will do is that it will make it more of a fit when we're talking about the current situation of this epoch, of this century, if you will, the 21st century, which is all about climate change. We are still learning from COVID, which is all about the future of work. And last but not the least, we covered that in the last one, as Dr. Saab said, wealth inequality, where a handful of individuals, 26, when I last checked the Oxfam report, 26 individuals have as much wealth as 50% of the population of the world. That's huge wealth inequality. And जो सारी बातें डॉक्टर साहब आप कर रहे थे in the beginning, in the introduction, they go back to this wealth inequality. Because when states get poorer and individuals get richer, there will be issues, but I do agree with you that at the end of the day, it's about reshaping social policy in a number of these countries. So first thing on this risk management policy tool, let's start looking at it that way. Let's see if we can. It will still be about poverty reduction, but it's a risk management tool, and we'll be better able to fit it for the whole thing about के climate risk कहीं और हो रहे हैं, disaster management कहीं और हो रही है, social protection बिल्कुल इन दोनों से बात नहीं करती. So I think if we sort of start reframing it, we'll start fitting in better, and we need to fit better. We need to fit better. Otherwise, जो real existential crisis है, that of climate, climate change. Well, and we know that Pakistan is facing both floods because of the glaciers and all, and as well as the slow onset one, which is temperature increase. So, दोनों के लिए we need to do that. The other is again terminology and the way we look at things, which is where Dr. Safdar and I have had many discussions offline as well on this, and I like engaging on this, and I'd really like feedback from everyone as well. Which is when we talk about contributory and non-contributory, is where we create this, because the ILO report also, if you read it, they say that you will have to have public support for some of these changes. Because right now, the social protection, even though as such social protection is now 50% of the population across the globe, has some form of social protection, but still I think the figure was 3.8 billion people without any, because more than 80% of those who have coverage are actually in high income countries. Any kind of coverage. We're not right now saying whether it's universal, conditional, this, that, or the other, any kind of coverage. So the thing is that this, we know that for climate, for any kind of disaster payment that is made, people who have some ex-ante liquidity are able to use that money well. Otherwise, that goes into basic consumption needs. So you're not able to do what you wanted to do with that money. And similarly, with just transition as well, even though that's still very much green transition is very much a technical subject and a work in progress, and one can have another talk on that. So I'm not going to go too much in detail in that, but we can discuss if there are questions. But the point is that we still have gaps to fulfill that part, because the public thinks that, and this is again not just Pakistan, go to the US, it's the same. India is the same. I mean, you can name so many countries which are same. Wherever I've worked, it's been the same, which is that it's looked at as a handout. And I feel that that's because we say contributory and non-contributory, whereas actually it's contributory and tax financed. And almost every citizen is giving some form of tax or the other, especially in Pakistan, where there's quite a bit of indirect tax that is being paid in. Really, it's if you make it about tax finance, then it becomes less about somehow that charity model that Dr. Safdar talked about, because again, framing and terminology, I think, matters in the way we set the policy to meet the challenges as we are seeing them right now. And last but not the least, and there are quite a few things which I'm not, but basically, if you look at the R2202, there's a lot on how to make this taxation balance as well within that. But last but not the least, I think one thing that I always appreciate the way Pakistan has done that. I have yet to see countries do that well on that, is the technology support or the digital support that the systems have had. But having said that, that was possible because we had a very, and I mean, at least I feel that was possible because we had a very solid basis was given because of the CNIC, the NADRA system. No system is perfect, so I'm not claiming that system was perfect, but that system was a very solid basis that we had even before any of these digital technologies. So everything built on that. So that's something that one is genuinely proud, because wherever you go, that would always be something that will be highlighted, and Pakistan be commended on that. But having said that, the only thing that happens at times, and again, this is not just in Pakistan, this is because when something works, people think that a technology solution or a digital solution is a policy solution. A digital solution is not a policy solution. Form follows function. We all know that, but it tends to be, we get excited, we get, it's not easy to put in those systems, but it's just that we have to have clearly defined policy outcomes which are shock responsive, and only then would the digitalization and the technology or all those systems that we know we can do so well will also be shock responsive. And we saw that during COVID. We had the best systems, but our policy was not to have developed a shock responsive social protection system. And therefore, we had to still go to the districts and the tehsils and get that information. And kudos to the people who did that. But the system, with all the investment in it, because it was following the policy, could not expand when needed. And we need to have the policy to be shock responsive for the system to actually be able to do that. Lastly, just a couple of things on disability inclusive social protection. And simply because, you see, that is where the paradigmatic shift for me in terms of social justice comes in, and also because it's SPRC. And that's why I remain a strong supporter of SPRC for that very reason. Because, you see, the paradigmatic shift that social protection needs, based on what I've just said in terms of contributory and tax finance system and dignity and handout, is two things: a system which is based on which is delivering on dignity and independence. And what do we mean by that? What at least I would mean by that is that people are able to lead dignified lives, people are able to make autonomous decisions, and people are able to participate fully in society. I think these are the three things that we have to, and that's where that whole point of intersectionality comes in and social justice comes in. Because whether it's disability, whether it's gender inequalities, whether it's urban-rural divides, whether it's indigenous people, whether it's some kind of perception of sectarianism, whatever the context is, these things matter in terms of what it will take for people to lead a dignified life, make autonomous decisions, and participate fully in society. And that's where I think that aligning of care and support services can be the next generation of social protection systems in Pakistan. So for me then it's important that the link between things like Darul Sukoon and Hamkadam is there. The link between Darul Amans and Mamta is there, because sometimes the woman would not only need the prenatal and postnatal care, antenatal and postnatal care, she would actually maybe need the Darul Aman as well. Whatever it is, or somebody from Darul Aman would need to be reintegrated into that. How would social protection help in that? These are questions that I think the next generation can do. But just to quickly sort of conclude, because I won't go into the older person, except for saying that 46.1% of older people globally have a moderate to severe functional disability, which tells us that when we're talking about disability, when we're talking about life with dignity, when we're talking about independence, we are talking about older people as well. So I think that as well is something I want to just put in there. But as to keep within the time, I'm going to try to conclude now, which is that which is what we all know, which is what we're all trying for, which is a systems approach. Because if we are going to go for social protection for resilience, we have to move away from developing or designing a program which is shock responsive. We have to start looking at how the system is shock responsive. And for the system to be shock responsive, we have to seriously start looking at universal programs, introducing universal programs, because till we do that, we will not develop a system which because it will not look universally. It will only look at those geographically targeted districts or those poverty targeted people that the policy has put forward. So I think universal systems, if we really are serious about climate resilience and social protection, we have to look at the system level, and we have to introduce universal programs in some form or the other. How we do that benefit mix is up to our context, up to our calculation, a lot of variables in that. The second thing that for me is very, very important is, again, I've said this before, but I'll still say it again, which is the SP and K service integration. Because again, so we cannot talk about social justice, we cannot talk about any kind of inclusiveness, and especially disability inclusion and old age inclusion, without that. And lastly, I see the two, I think I'm not talking about what's happened in Pakistan, but I think the two things in the recent past that have really happened for Pakistan is the provincial level work on social protection. I think that is the vehicle that we needed, that is the opportunity that we needed to develop the next generation social protection programs and next generation social protection system in Pakistan. Whether that's through the integration of services, whether that's through introducing some universal programming, whether that's through really taking that social protection policy approach and making it about everyone, and making it about dignity, and making it about independence. That obviously the authorities knows the best, but I think the opportunity really lies within that, because the federation should not be doing more than what it is doing right now. The provinces need to really take control and take it forward. I'll stop here. I won't go into local government and all of that, but I'm happy to keep engaging and keep answering if there are any questions. Once again, thank you everyone for the time.
Shirin, thank you very much. I wish I was equally effective and subtle in conveying difficult passages that you have done in your presentation. Thank you very much for bringing a lot of important subjects. I think I'll come back to these at the end, the linkage between social justice and climate justice, and this tripod of poverty reduction and these two justices. But one little comment I must make, that I think one area where universalization is never contested is the universe of the person with disabilities, particularly the severe cases of person with disabilities. I think for me, Mr. Rafique and Mr. Alishba, the litmus test of the success of the policy, system approach, and effective services or any province would be the way they are going to provide effective, proactive, disability sensitive social protection to the person with severe disabilities. Now, it is Mr. Rafique Sheikh who is going to share with us what is happening in Sindh and what is happening in his department. Mr. Rafique Sheikh, it's over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Saab, and thank you, Ma'am Shiri. So eloquently explained what social protection is all about and what social protection system at the global, national, and even provincial level. So I will have nothing to talk about such things, but three things come in my mind. जो तीन चीजें मेरे जहन में मैडम श्री को सुनने के बाद मेरे जहन में आई. Whenever we talk about social protection, three terminologies. Of course, terminologies are very critical and expressions are very important to understand what the systems are all about. For example, poverty, vulnerabilities, and inequalities. So social protection, what I understand, revolves around three concepts: poverty, vulnerability, and inequalities. So anyone could help me understand if something else come in and be part of the social protection. So this is my take on what social protection is. As a department, as a province, of course, the social protection is evolving and it's evolving phenomena, and we're very new in that, landscape, ये दुनिया जो है social protection की. In terms of institutional arrangement, legal arrangement, or a policy arrangement, we are very new. But what I understand, Sindh ho, Punjab ho, Pakistan ho, social protection, without having named social protection, it has been operating since 1947. Like in Sindh, for example, when we were talking about social protection, so here comes the SESI in mind, Social Security Institution, the provincial institution, and that is being operated in Punjab as well. Since SESI is working here, for example, and that has been working since 1970. Likewise, a department of empowering person with disabilities. And that's a department working on, like, for example, Zakat and Ushur. They are working on and they're trying to help poor and the vulnerable segment of the society. The Labor Department, for example. So I was talking to Labor Department, and one of the arm of the Labor Department is a SASI. So when I was talking to Secretary a few days ago, so we have got Agri Worker Law, 2019 Agri Worker Law, Women Agri Worker Law. But just thinking whether we could register them as a labor. So he was reluctant. He was thinking, yes, we're trying to register women agri worker as a labor, but there's a challenge ahead. And what the challenge was, like the industrial labor is actually feel agri worker as a competitor for sharing the benefit. So since 2019, we haven't been able to register women agri worker as a labor in the province. So as Social Protection Department, when Social Protection Department came into being in 2022, in August 2022, the one thing the department led that, of course, that was on agenda. And now the Sindh Social Protection Authority Act has been passed. And that actually laid the foundation for establishment of Sindh Social Protection Authority in the province in December 2022. At the institutional level or a legal level, हम यहाँ तक आगे आ चुके हैं कि जो सोशल प्रोटेक्शन है सिंध में, उसको सोशल प्रोटेक्शन कहें, सोशल सिक्योरिटी कहें, लेबर मार्केट मैनेजमेंट कहें, जैसे शीरी साहिबा ने बात की कंट्रीब्यूटरी एंड नॉन कंट्रीब्यूटरी, तो इस सारी चीज़ों को जो लॉ में जो मैंडेट दिया गया सोशल प्रोटेक्शन अथॉरिटी को या डिपार्टमेंट को, ये कहा गया कि जी फर्स्ट थिंग फर्स्ट इज टू हेल्प गवर्नमेंट अंडरस्टैंड कि सारे जो लैंडस्केप है इसको एक तो कोऑर्डिनेट करना है, पहले तो मैप करना है, फिर कोऑर्डिनेट करना है, और फिर बताना है कि व्हाट इज हैपनिंग इन द प्रोविंस। डॉक्टर सईद साहब के साथ मिलके कुछ दिन पहले हम जब काम कर रहे थे, तो मैं अभी तक आई एम ट्राइंग टू फिगर आउट एंड ट्राइंग टू एब्जॉर्ब दैट what he was sharing with me, that for example at this point of time in 2024 the 3.56 trillion of the government budget is, out of that approximately 1600 billion and 1.16 trillion is being spent as a social protection in the province. So this is something mind-boggling for me and for all जो मुझे यहाँ सुन रहे हैं कि ऐसे सेंस में हम ऐसे कर रहे हैं। जो शी साहब picked on कि जी fragmentation. And the point is not if it is a fragmentation or not. The point is that the public sector has been structured in a way that the different departments have been assigned to perform different functions. As a department, as an authority, when I talk to departments and जब मैं उनसे बात करता हूँ और जब उनको बताता हूँ, तो ये झगड़ा कभी ये नहीं होता कि there's a tough कि जी this is your duty or my duty. The point is, can we have a cohesive response to the poverty, vulnerability, and inequality? So that is the type of discourse, at least after the establishment of department authority is on in the province. And fortunately, and would be happy to share with all of you, कि जी एक सिंध सोशल प्रोटेक्शन अथॉरिटी लॉ के तहत सिंध सोशल प्रोटेक्शन अथॉरिटी बोर्ड बना दिया गया है, being led by Chief Minister himself. And there's so many actors are there, and that board is being represented by the Labor Department, Health Department, Planning and Development, and the people from the civil society are there as well. So then there's institutional work and there's institutional landscape. हमने तकरीबन 1-1.5 साल में ये बना दिया है। और टेस्टिंग क्या हो रही है, जो again I would count on what she was saying, the system development. So with the support of the World Bank and with the support of the GIZ and so many donors around and the government of Pakistan and Sindh, what type of system we should have, social protection system we should have. So of course the discussion is on, but one of the flagship program the department does is health and nutrition conditional cash transfer for pregnant and lactating women in 15 districts of the province of the Sindh. And how these 15 districts were selected, जो 15 districts select किए गए, based on multi-dimensional poverty index की बुनियाद पे, the poorest of the poor, जो हमारे 15 districts से 30 में से उनको select किया गया, वहाँ पे हम ये एक intervention under social protection authority execute कर रहे हैं। लेकिन जैसे कि डॉक्टर सफदर साहब ने एक शुरू में कहा कि जी जो पोस्ट फ्लड जो पोस्ट डिजास्टर फिनोमेना था सिंध में, जो एस्टिमेशन थी कि कम से कम तकरीबन $14 बिलियन वो लॉस्ट, जो डैमेजेस थे वो तकरीबन $14 बिलियन के थे। तो उसके लिए जो रिस्पॉन्स वाज, जो सबसे बड़ा रिस्पॉन्स था सिंध का, एंड दैट हैज ग्लोबली बीन एक्सेप्टेड, कि जी तकरीबन 21 लाख घर बनाने जा रहा है ये सिंध गवर्नमेंट, जिसके लिए पूरी दुनिया गवर्नमेंट ऑफ सिंध को सपोर्ट कर रही है। और 21 लाख घर में से तकरीबन 7 लाख घर बनना शुरू हो चुके हैं सिंध में in 2 years time. So agree with Shiri and Dr. Safdar Saab, KG, no matter who does, but the point is whether they undertake interventions known as a social protection. कुछ दिन पहले जब डिसेबिलिटी की बात आ रही थी या वल्नरेबिलिटी की बात आ रही थी, आई वाज टॉकिंग टू माय चीफ मिनिस्टर कि सर इस साल का जो बजट है उस बजट में फॉर एग्जांपल अगर 287 बिलियन जो पेंशन एलोकेशन है फॉर पेंशन एंड कम्युनिकेशन, क्योंकि 60 साल के बाद एक सिविल सर्वेंट भी वल्नरेबल हो जाता है, तो वो जो है सोशल प्रोटेक्शन कहलाता है और हम इसको सोशल प्रोटेक्शन कहेंगे। उन्होंने कहा जो जैसे डॉक्टर शीरी ने कहा द पॉइंट इज नॉट कि ये कंट्रीब्यूटरी है या नॉन कंट्रीब्यूटरी है। So the decision has been taken even for civil servants. Now the pension would be the contributory. So this is what the province of Sindh social protection landscape पे कर रहा है. So this is what we're doing and we plan कि हम जो पूरा यूनिवर्सल सोशल प्रोटेक्शन सिस्टम है उसको कैसे इवॉल्व करें। फॉर एग्जांपल जैसे डॉक्टर शीरी साहिबा ने बात की, इवन ये भी डिबेट इज ऑन एट द पॉलिसी लेवल, शुड बी सेट फ्लोर्स फॉर सोशल प्रोटेक्शन लाइक एज ILO रिकमेंड्स, वी शुड सेट फ्लोर्स फॉर द सोशल प्रोटेक्शन। और दूसरी जो थीमेटिक डिबेट इन द प्रोविंसेस, डॉक्टर शीरी साहिबा ने इसको बड़ा अच्छा एक्सप्लेन किया कि जो पॉवर्टी रिडक्शन एंड सोशल प्रोटेक्शन के जो लिंकेजेस हैं आपस में, तो ये भी एक डिबेट है कि जी पॉवर्टी रिडक्शन एंड सोशल प्रोटेक्शन ये दो अलग दुनिया है। जब मैं ये दोनों को देखता था और सोचता था, मुझे दो लोग जहन में आते थे, डॉक्टर कैसर बंगाली साहब और हारिस गजदर साहब। So one supporting poverty reduction and other was supporting social protection. We're just thinking and talking to them कि सर there's a midway, कोई ऐसा रास्ता है जहाँ पे social protection and poverty reduction complement and supplement each other. And thank you, Shiri Sahiba. You helped me understand the linkages between the two, social protection and poverty reduction, and how inequalities are addressed. So of course, we need a lot to do on social protection, and the Sindh government is on it, and looking forward to learning and doing. Thank you very much, Dr. Saab. This is from my side.
Rafique, thank you very much for giving an overview of the situation in Sindh, particularly the role of your department. And it's really nice to hear from the secretary of the department that you are keen to learn also the thematic debates that you have talked about. In fact, for us, looking from where we are right now, Sindh has always taken lead in coming up with progressive legislations and having high quality debates on these issues. And I think this introduction of a department which could help map, coordinate different initiatives where we are talking about the social protection and care model combined. So we hope to hear much better, many good news coming from your side. And I'll just like to remind the participants of one data which Rafique has shared, that financing is not really a problem, or you can say that we have huge allocations for social protection, 1.6 trillion rupees for Sindh only. So is it a question of public sector expenditure or coordination or policy? So that way, I'm really happy, Rafique, that you are with us and have shared the thinking which is happening, and this linkage between poverty, vulnerability, and inequality. I think this is at the heart of the matter. So we continue the same discussion in the question answer session. We have with us Mr. Ali Shehzad, the CEO of Punjab Social Protection Authority. You are with us, Mr. Ali Shehzad?
Dr. Saab, I am.
Ali, thank you very much. Ali is a seasoned senior PS officer who I have the pleasure of knowing him and listening him. He has really mastered the subject and has very incisive comments on the way the system is working and the way it should work. It's over to you, Ali.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saab. I think there's not a lot to be added after what Ms. Shirin has sort of mapped the landscape, not only as it exists right now, but where we are coming from and where we should go. Secretary Saab from Sindh also added to that. I think, but since I have to share my thoughts as a practitioner of the sector in one of the bigger provinces of Pakistan, I think I would start from the fact that the point that you just mentioned, that the allocations are probably Secretary Social Protection from the Sindh government said that they're around 1.6 trillion, if I caught the figure correctly. So the thing is that this sort of takes us back to social protection as a domain is very nebulous. And if you want to think creatively, you can define anything and everything from a lens of social protection. At the end of the day, education is social protection. It's in like Ms. Shirin said, that it's sort of a risk mitigation framework. If we look at it like that, it is still it is ensuring you from the risk of unemployability. If you take health, it is ensuring you against some other. And if you define it in a way, if you want to define it in a way, you can define literally anything that the government does. All government services, you can link them. You can define them as a social protection intervention, for that matter. The problem is that for that entire portfolio, the entire government is working. It's not just a few departments. And although we have the social protection agencies or entities or units, whatever we want to call them in different provinces, the fact remains that we as units are doing we are just one small part in the entire machinery. And the rest of the machinery is also a big chunk of the rest of the machinery is also doing social protection, if we look at it like that. That said, and that is what leads to what we often refer to as fragmentation. And I think so far as the government current structure is there, I don't think we can sort of do away with the fragmentation as such. But yes, we should develop synergies and we should converge. And the Punjab Social Protection Authority held a social protection conference a couple of months ago, and in that as well, we expounded this theme that it is not the opposite of fragmentation is perhaps not defragmentation, in the sense that we don't want, and it is not possible for departments to, for everything to get abolished and sort of start, and one entity should come in and it should be looking at. But the solution is, the way forward is actually convergence and synergies, where the systems are talking to each other, and we have something which is in parts, but it is working in tandem as a whole. So that's the sort of way forward. And then under this broader objective, a lot of complementarities can be explored and a lot of modalities can be discussed regarding how data needs to be shared and utilized and even created. Data is obviously not only used and shared, but it is in the first instance created, and we can create more data and then use it for different purposes and make that convergence possible that would lead to better social outcomes. Speaking of which, Ms. Shirin also referred to the fact that social development and social justice as themes and maybe as ultimate ends or objectives of the social protection regime in Pakistan. So I think that in Pakistan so far we have not accepted social protection as a ladder for actually development in the true sense. I think but then it is a sort of a dichotomous view of things, that either we want to use social protection as a ladder for development, or we want to just keep it as a risk mitigation measure and maybe find a way where both the concepts can be reconciled. But for instance, I had a chance to visit Brazil a couple of months ago, and there the ministry that deals with and executes the entire Bolsa Familia project, which is the biggest, and the most flagship social protection program of the world. It is called the Ministry of Social Development, and their entire Bolsa Familia is a conditional cash transfer program, which hinges on people and the students and the children, they complying with certain conditions, which includes health, education, and other markers. And only if you do that, you keep getting the social assistance that the program offers. And that is in a way translating into an intergenerational uplift, and not just means of not just charity, or not just cash transfers, which do help people not drowning, keeping their heads above the water level, but not just that, but also sort of gradually pulling them out of poverty and pushing them into development and prosperity. In the same vein, we have touched upon the theme of climate change and the adaptive social protection as a theme. And then, yes, once again, like I said, that the fragmentation or to address the fragmentation, we should sort of start converging. And that convergence is once again sort of aspired to when we talk about the adaptive social protection as a subspecialty of social protection domain, wherein people would be or the climate related risks and other disasters, they would be preemptively and ex ante cash transfers or any other sort of intervention that we want to do will be designed on that. So Punjab is working on that as well. And talking of what Dr. Sohail referred to in the earlier introduction at the start of the talk, was that both Punjab and Sindh are in the process of making their own socio-economic registries. I'm not sure about Sindh, but Punjab has already launched as we speak, and we have around 2 stakeholders. The design of the new PSCR, which is sort of the provincial version of the NSCR, is that it is a family-based model now on. The NSCR was a household-based model the assets and the means that we are now using as wealth filters, they are in the name of certain, they are obviously in the name of a certain person, and usually they are the heads of the households. So we have adopted a family-based model where we are also integrating the entire registry with the land records, land record authority of Punjab. We are integrating it with the excise data for the vehicles ownership. We have also integrated it with the e-stamp paper system of the government of Punjab, where where anybody who gets a stamp paper issued for any property transaction is also noted, and then we have wealth filters for that. Why I think whether, and then there can be debate about whether we should have had a single registry or a single payment model for that. But I think for now, this is a way forward, and it is. I am hopeful that it will sort of create a competition between the different federating units, a healthy competition between the different federating units and the federation as well, in fostering innovation, in fostering more creative, more inclusive, more, I would say, with more holistic view of the entities, and the flexibility that was missing in the NSCR because it was a federal entity, and the flexibility that the provinces needed to take this, to help this paradigm evolve, was not available, but would be available with the provincial socioeconomic registries. And let's hope that this becomes a good step forward, which helps the social protection paradigm, not only in Punjab but in other provinces as well. So I think that's where I stop. And if there are any questions, we can discuss them in the last part of the webinar.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Mr. Ali Shehzad, for really highlighting the key developments taking place and the issues and your perspective. Many questions, and let's have the last presentation first, and then we get back to you. Ms. Alishba, it's over to you for a quick presentation, not taking more than 8-10 minutes.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I will try to keep this short. Although हमारा आज का जो topic है, it's more about social protection systems, but we are focusing here on inclusion of persons with disability in the system and the work that SPRC has been doing for the past almost 2 years in this regard. Okay, so the well-being of persons with disabilities is closely associated with the responsiveness of the social care services, assistance and benefits to the varying and multi-sectoral needs of the persons with disabilities. We realize that the government assistance at the current level is not being responsive enough, and there's not enough outreach of the government to the persons with disabilities. So there are certain institutional and systematic structure level gaps in how we are responding to the needs, diverse needs, I would say, which are related to healthcare, rehabilitation, social care, and vocational opportunities. So these diverse needs, we identified that there are certain gaps which need to be filled in, especially because disability is now a provincial subject after 18th Amendment, and there are certain gaps in the federal government or ICT level, which can be taken up if we work at from the top to the bottom at local government or local authority levels. So I would start with identifying a few sticky problems Basically, we started with 16 sticky problems. यहाँ पे हम assistance के gaps, institutional gaps और system की level की gaps को identify करे थे कि कहाँ पे unmet needs हैं persons with disabilities की. So I would take this I would discuss all 16 of these one by one later on, but यहाँ पे हम इनको converge करके discuss कर लेते हैं. That government assistance जो है does not reach majority of the PWDs because उनकी जो documentation या disability assessment का criteria है, जो process है, उसमें कुछ certain gaps हैं. And वो inefficiencies की वजह से जो है maybe the assistance is not reaching to them. For example, अगर एक बंदे को हमारे यहाँ जो system है to give any kind of services or benefit to a person with disability, it requires a certificate. अगर उस certificate के बाद उसका कुछ नहीं हो रहा, उस data का कुछ नहीं हो रहा, and that data exists in certain files, it is not even digitized, तो फिर उसका आगे उसकी government की outreach कैसे होगी? That is one point. और उस process के अंदर legal या technical जो gaps हैं वो भी हमने देखे. इसी तरह special education की जो institutes हैं, we discussed with Director General Special Education as well. उसकी coverage कम है. The institute exists, but a lot of children are in the waiting list maybe because वो 160 कितने students को accommodate कर सकते हैं, उनकी capacity की बात है. Then we also realize कि हमारी जो interventions होती हैं, policy and programmatic interventions, they do not consider disability in old age as much. हमारे यहाँ कोई long term care plans या palliative care की चीजें नहीं हैं for patients with dementia and strokes. इसी तरह we also realize कि unsuitable caregivers की situation में guardianship के rules जो हैं उनमें gaps हैं. So these are few of the sticky problems जो कि हमने identify किए. And we first of all contacted Ministry of Health. We took up the issue with them, and then we started building a research and development group. जिसके बारे में मैं आपको further अभी बताती हूँ. Okay. So, in May 2023, we established this research and development group with the help of Ministry of National Health Services Regulation Coordination, Ministry of Human Rights, Pakistan Bureau of Statistics, Benazir Income Support Program, and Sahel Program. We engaged in pro bono knowledge partnerships with all these 5 government departments, and they engaged their officers with us for technical input. Yeah, ताकि हम consultative meetings इस तरह से arrange करें that we can come up with consensus and research-based reforms for an integrated approach. And with all these efforts, the Ministry of Human Rights, they came up. There was a willingness in them, and they accepted the proposals of the research and development group to establish an integrated social welfare system for persons with disabilities. Okay, this is the list of partner organizations in the R&D group. Okay, so let us discuss a little bit about the integrated social welfare system. It is aspired as a model of care in which we want that care services are aligned to the needs of the persons with disabilities as per their age group, as per their socioeconomic status, and as per their severity of their disabilities. So with this whole vision, we designed different interventions. We have been engaged in 4 key areas to materialize this or operationalize this vision with Ministry of Human Rights, Sahel Program, and BISP. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to discuss about the expansion of support services and benefits. In this area, the critical problems we identified again is that assistance जो government दे रही है, it is not equitable to what is the need of the person. And old age related, हमारे पास we of course do not have social pension programs, and we do not have long-term care assistance programs. And then there isn't any caregiver support assistance either integrated in the social protection program. So eventually, when we discussed this with the with Mr. Naveed, who was then, who's still, I think, DG NSCR at BISP, we identified these gaps with him. And it led to the establishment of a committee for proposing specific programs or initiatives for the persons with disabilities. So for that purpose, the SPRC has been providing technical and knowledge support to that committee. So we started with identifying unmet social protection needs, and we are currently formulating and proposing specific social protection programs, जिसकी हम एक brief सी detail अभी इस presentation में भी cover करेंगे. So हमारा flagship program बेनज़ीर income support program में major problems कहाँ पे हैं? सबसे पहले एक problem जो coverage में आती है, which is also identified by the BISP as well, कि there is limited availability of SC and IC. The integration of the database of NSCR with the NADRA requires कि एक बंदे के पास specialized NC and IC हो. इसमें मसला यहाँ आता है कि person with disabilities को आप two-step verification process से क्यों गुजारे when they're already verified for their where their disability is already identified in a disability certificate. So आप उनको एक second verification stage इसलिए रख रहे हैं because there isn't a mechanism to integrate a certificate issuing authority with the BISP. चले ठीक है, but उसकी वजह से a lot of people are excluded. Second problem हमने ये देखा है that the coverage is very low in BISP of persons with disabilities, and the program does not provide any additional assistance to the persons with disability. हम mainstream cash transfer में उनकी eligibility को enhance करने के लिए cut off score enhance करते हैं, but any disability allowance और caregiver allowance जैसे हमारे कोई program इस वक्त exist नहीं करता. So under kafalat program, ये national level के statistics हैं कि the percentage of persons with disabilities who are covered in the kafalat program is about 0.36%. And जो बेनज़ीर तालीमी वज़ाइफ है उसके अंदर जो coverage है children with disabilities की वो total beneficiaries में से 0.6% है. लेकिन कफालत में जो हमने proportion निकाला है, it is out of the total population of persons with disability as per the National Census 2023. In comparison, अगर हम internationally देखें और अपने region को ही देखें तो इंडिया और बांग्लादेश में they have a separate disability allowance apart from the mainstream cash transfer for the persons with disability, और उसकी coverage भी काफी ज़्यादा है. In addition to this, we also analyze कि caregiver allowance कौन सी countries में दी जाती है for the family caregiver. Different countries have established caregiver programs with cash for care की base पे if a family member dedicates themselves to care for the person with disability for severe cases of disability जहाँ पे assisted living की requirements हों, तो उसमें we realize कि वियतनाम जैसे country which is also a low and middle income country, वहाँ पे भी there is a financial support for caregiver. इसकी और हमें मिसाल यहाँ से मिलती है कि this is from the World Social Outlook report of UNDESA. Yeah. अगर आप यहाँ पे देखें तो साउथ एशिया में पाकिस्तान जो है on the share of persons with severe disabilities जिनको किसी भी social protection में cover किया जा रहा है वो सबसे low आ रहा है. चले भूटान से ऊपर है but we're even below Afghanistan, जबकि बांग्लादेश surpasses the regional and global average. So तो इससे हमें बस यही समझ आती है कि there is no prioritization at the policy level. अगर prioritization होगी तो फिर ही coverage enhance होगी. Then we analyze कि social assistance program for disabled persons domestic level पे किस तरह से हैं, and we identified कि इस्लामाबाद में currently, because इस्लामाबाद जो है it is a federal capital territory, तो and disability is a provincial subject, तो इधर अगर कोई social protection initiative होता है तो वो perhaps BISP की साइड से ही होगा. But currently there is no such disability allowance, etc. Punjab mein there is a program under which they give 3,500 PKR to about 65,000 persons per monthly. But इसमें भी हमने देखा कि नॉन बेनिफिशियरी ऑफ VISP को देते हैं, जबकि इंटरनेशनल एग्जाम्पल में हम देखते हैं कि किसी की eligibility to a mainstream cash transfer does not make them ineligible for a disability allowance. Maybe I'm wrong here. Someone from TSPA can correct me. But as far as I've checked, only non-beneficiary of VISP is given the disability allowance in Punjab. Because we're running short of time, so I'm trying to make this a bit quick. So after going through all these statistics, we came up with this with the 3 key recommendations. Then Pakistan needs a basic disability allowance for persons with disabilities. Why I say this? Because I have met people from very poor households who are not able to even afford basic medicines for their children who are epileptic, who get seizures, and that medicine is very expensive, and often it is not found, it is absent from the medical pharmacy of government hospitals. So we think that basic disability allowance should be given to PWDs to cover direct costs of disability that is related to health, transport, education, extra costs jo aate hain person with disability ko to participate in the society as effectively as any other person. Secondly, we also believe that for severe persons with disabilities who need someone to take care of them, for them there should be either a caregiver allowance, or there should be an institutional care grant. A caregiver allowance can be given to a family member, whereas an institutional care grant could be given to, could be designed in such a way that an institution that is empaneled gets a specific agreed amount for the care of that person, and it could be per person. And especially ये इस उन cases में बहुत ज़्यादा important है जहाँ पे या तो household का poverty status बहुत ही below poverty line है, और उन cases में जहाँ पे unsuitable guardians हैं, where क्योंकि severe cases of mental disability में harsh treatment भी बहुत ज़्यादा होता है, so institutional care के भी arrangements की हमें ज़रूरत है. Okay. So next is social health protection, क्योंकि disability का एक direct cost health से बहुत ज़्यादा relate करता है. तो we analyze कि यहाँ पे किधर gaps हैं और क्या current जो major social health insurance program है पाकिस्तान का सेहत सहूलत program, does it cover all the healthcare needs of the persons with disabilities? So we adopted this approach कि हमने एक secondary research की to identify एक condition के अंदर क्या healthcare needs होते हैं, क्या rehabilitative needs होती हैं, depending on disability type, its severity, its age group, etc. And then we held a consultative workshop with the doctors of National Institute of Rehabilitation Medicine. हमने हर speciality के doctor को engage किया इसमें, and they were kind enough to share their inputs voluntarily. और उनको हमने consolidate किया है, and now we're working towards formulating packages, proposing packages to the सेहत सहूलत program कि आप लोग भी like other countries you can come up with certain healthcare expansion of healthcare services for the persons with disabilities specifically. अच्छा, अब हमने इनमें सेहत सहूलत प्रोग्राम में जो गैप्स आइडेंटिफाई किए, इट वाज मेनली के हमारे हेल्थ केयर जो है असिस्टेड लिविंग केयर नीड्स को किसी तरह से या लॉन्ग टर्म केयर नीड्स को अकोमोडेट नहीं करा, एंड रिहेबिलिटेशन सर्विसेज स्पेशली जो थेरेपीज होती हैं, ऑक्यूपेशनल थेरेपी, फिजिकल थेरेपीज, बिहेवियरल थेरेपीज एक्सेट्रा, वो कवर नहीं होती बिकॉज दे आर आउट पेशेंट. बट जब हम पर्सन विद डिसेबिलिटीज की बात करते हैं तो उनकी बेसिक ट्रीटमेंट वो थेरेपीज होती हैं, एंड विच इज needed for them. Apart from that, जो एक package person with disability के लिए specifically है सेहत सहूलत program में, it is for prosthetics and orthotics. But we also identified कि वो खाली उसकी empanelment पेशावर में है. So we need to see कि अच्छा अगर कोई सर्विस जो दी भी जा रही है वो कहाँ दी जा रही है, उसकी ग्रास रूट पे इम्पैक्ट कितने ज़्यादा है. So सेहत सहूलत program currently focuses more on preventive, curative treatment and promotive healthcare, but it leaves rehabilitation, palliative care. So we try to see कि अच्छा और कौन सी countries हैं जो lower and middle income हैं जहाँ पे rehabilitation services को health insurance program में cover किया गया है. So India का एक program है, उसकी coverage इतनी ज़्यादा नहीं है, but they do have a separate program to cover for the rehabilitation services. Maya, I think उसका नाम है. And then Vietnam के अंदर जो उनका broad national health insurance program है, which is contributory, but for persons with disability, the state covers all the expenses, it's tax finance. और Philippines को हम देखते हैं तो उनका भी national health insurance program जो है वो rehabilitation services को cover करता है. Apart from that, हमने ऑस्ट्रेलिया को स्टडी किया, but of course that is a higher income country, so that is not as relevant to our context. But जब हमने पाकिस्तान में देखा तो फिर हमारी जो person with disabilities की healthcare needs की coverage है health insurance program में quite limited है, और especially जब हम rehabilitation services की बात करें. So एक ये thinking to begin with, अब package तो किसी टाइम पे आएगा, but to begin thinking about it कि हमने इन rehabilitation services को augment कैसे करना है, इनको किस तरीके से regulate करना है कि इनको integrate किया जा सके into an empaneled health insurance program. This is the kind of thinking that is needed in the social health insurance sector. Let's skip this. Okay, second जो aspect है जिसको हमने cover किया अपने research and development group में, which is related to integrating the support and services. इसके लिए we have I've summarized here 4 key sticky problems जिनको हमने address किया है, या ministry ने, which has also taken these up, which is one is related to insufficient opportunities of vocational education. For that purpose, NAFTEC is also joining in this R&D group, and they're probably working on some courses. Then there's lack of local government level measures and responses, which is very important to discuss because outreach of government increases when there is a local government level action. I will discuss later about a case management approach that has been adopted for this purpose. For integration of service providers, 5 key ministries have been engaged with the Ministry of Human Rights, Social Welfare Wing, and we developed a model, which is a hub and spokes model, in which the Ministry of Human Rights serves as a focal point for the registration of disabled persons or issuance of the disability certificates as per the ICT Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act. The second point is that the distribution of information of persons with disabilities is being enabled through an MIS. And referral procedures are also being put in place through a case management system. Okay, so इस सबको operationalize करने के लिए the ministry is developing a management information system and digitizing the system of disability issuance certificates so that integration can be made through a digital solution. So currently हमारा जो disability assessment का system है उसमें काफी ज़्यादा gaps थे, और क्योंकि वो manual था and उसके सारे records manual थे, इस वजह से उनकी जो data था it could not be integrated with any other department. So once the MIS is in place, which is being currently developed by the ministry with the help of NITB, then that database would be there, official and authentic, तो वो integrate हो सकती है बाकी databases के साथ. Secondly, हमारे पास हमने देखा कि जो गवर्नमेंट असिस्टेंस है, it does not take into account additional cost, क्योंकि additional cost कहीं identify ही नहीं हो रही थी. तो we suggested that an additional form is introduced during the process of disability assessment, जिसमें ये देखा जा सके कि किस फैमिली के सोशो इकोनॉमिक बैकग्राउंड से है और उनके ऊपर किस तरह की disability costs आ रही है in various areas. And similarly, assistive technologies keep information document karna. And so we developed a whole questionnaire for this purpose, specific to the person with disability, jiske andar ye sari details hain: additional cost of disability, assistive technology cost, caregiver kaun hai, kya bachche ke apne parents, agar this child is an orphan, to kya uski yahi se identification ho jani chahiye, so that unsuitable caregivers वाली situation जो है उसको हम पहले ही system में कहीं identify कर सकें. Disability assessment की digitization की जो measures हैं, processes को हम यहाँ पे देख लेते हैं. So जो first है कि disability certificate की issuance को जो digitize या automate करने का process है, इसका मकसद क्या है? इसका मकसद ये है कि इससे पहले the person with disability had to travel to 2 different departments, एक council के पास and then एक doctor के पास. So we reduced those visits, and caregiver के भी number of visits reduce हो गए. Second, उसका purpose था to make available the data for providing services, so that data can be integrated with the service providers such as BISP, Betelman, and Sehat Sahulat program. Secondly, जो severity, जो disability assessment का process है, उसमें कुछ gaps देखे, and address करने के लिए we introduced severity assessment with the help of the doctors. हमने उनसे discuss किया that क्या disability को हम जो अभी assessed और document कर रहे हैं, उस documentation में कहीं gaps जो हैं उसको fill in किया है. Lastly, since the MIS based registration will be there, then that data can be retrieved and stored in a secure way, unlike के अभी जो system है to keep that data in papers in printed form. This is the basic structure, or you can say the features of the MIS. We can go into that detail, or considering the time limitation, we can move to the next slide.
Yeah, Alishba, try to conclude because we have just
sir, but this is the last slide.
10 more minutes, and we have to give chance to all the main speakers to make their final comments and answer a few questions also. I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm just concluding. Last point of intervention जो के introduce है, that is case management. So एक person को system के साथ connect करना, not just one ministry but with other departments as well. उसके लिए जो disability assessment का procedure है, उसी board की meeting में we now have field workers from BISP, Betelmal and Sehat Sahulat program जो कि वहाँ पे मौजूद होते हैं to inform people कि उसकी eligibility क्या है या process of enrolling क्या है. So these kind of small steps mean a lot to create awareness and to make people feel that the government is there for them. These are further details of the case management process that has been introduced. I would just conclude here we, after analyzing the sticky problems, we identified some structural problems which we are trying to address with the help of the R&D members and the government ministries, which are the partner of the R&D group. And in this context, I just want to conclude here that social protection system needs to be integrated with in-kind support services. जहाँ पे हम institutional care की बात कर रहे थे, वहाँ पे we do have some examples. For example, Grant in Aid Sindh government का एक project है जिसमें, but it mainly covers children. So we want के all age groups के लिए social protection systems responsive हो, not just कि हम क्योंकि childhood वो age होती है जिस पे ज़्यादा disabled programs इस वक्त focus कर रहे हैं, disability के related जितने भी initiatives हैं. So adult and elderly people के लिए भी उतने ही responsive होना ज़रूरी है. And from this example, I hope that the government of Sindh and the government of Punjab can also engage different departments on the subject of disability, because it is not an issue which is of one ministry. It is an issue that would involve integration and coordination among the different departments. Thank you so much.
Alishba, thank you very much for so comprehensively presenting at least the glimpses or the highlights of a very large process spread over 2 years. But as I said earlier, that if we can take care of our persons with disabilities, particularly the severe cases, then we would have a template for the larger social protection systems in Pakistan. And there, I would say, in terms of the provision of universal social protection, the severe cases of disability is the responsibility of the state. But in other cases, provide social protection to the people who deserve. That is, in a way, state's responsibility, but this is much more complex. I'll come to the speakers with the questions which have been raised in the chat. And Ms. Shirin, the major question which has been posed is that if you take this approach of making social protection systems respond mainly to the risks, what are the foundations on which you see risk is a contingency? The countries have their stable social security systems in place for normal times, which then which are there all the time. And then when the risk comes, there could be new programs. Are we only talking about the risks and vulnerabilities without having any social security system in place? Ms. Shiri, are you with us?
Gigi, I am. I was just trying to get my video and my speaker on, mic on. No, thank you so much for the question. Actually, if you social protection, the way I see it happening across, if you look at whether you look at the Beveridge model or whether you look at the Bismarckian model, both are responding to life cycle risks. So it is a risk mitigation tool. Disability is a risk that anyone can face anytime during your lifetime. As a child, as an older person, as a working age person, it can happen. What we call risk, for instance, the two programs right now in Punjab and Sindh, obviously the two leaders will know better. The two people who are leading it will know better, but they are also, the first 1,000 days are covered. Again, a childhood risk. Being out of school is a childhood risk. Being out of work, being unemployed is a working age risk. Being out of work because you're pregnant or lactating is, so it is a like the when we're talking about the major two schools of thought where social protection was developed from, and because what we're doing now is actually, and this was developed in a post World War II scenario. Before World War II, the kind of social protection systems that we know were poor relief systems. So now somehow for the lower and middle income, the kind of terminology and the kind of frameworks that we keep hearing also include those poor relief systems. And I say include because for instance, an example of Brazil, if I may, with Ali's, and I also saw Jami Saab here with their permission. Bolsa Familia is one program in the social protection system of Brazil. It's actually an interesting example that way because if you look at the landscape of social protection in Brazil, you will see that the old age pension has the highest number of beneficiaries. When I last checked around, it's been a while. It's been probably 7 years back or so that I last looked at it. So I remember it as being 23 million or 28 million, something like that. Whereas at that point, Bolsa Familia was 12 million, so almost half or less than half. And that also include the rural pensions, which are tax financed. So my point being that you are looking at the risk, and the other part that is very interesting is also this whole thing of, when I say that this is the next generation, and as close as you bring the system to the people, you bring it to the provincial level, you will see how, I really am hopeful, and I really am looking at good things to continue happening in these two provinces and other provinces as well. Because the Bolsa Familia was as effective as it was because the local government system in Brazil has a very well-organized front officer system, meaning if you miss school, the local government officials are there to report it. So the system, so again, same thing. It's interesting. Again, we were talking about fragmentation, two very different parts of the government doing the two things, but they link together. And as Ali very, nicely put it and eloquently put it, they converged. And I think as things will progress, they'll converge here as well. So my point was that when we take care of all of these life cycle risks, what are we doing? We are preventing poverty. But then these are not the only risks. We also have idiosyncratic risks. We can have a health risk, an economic shock, which can also prove detrimental, and for that as well. But you have to go into that frame of mind of risk mitigation, which goes into this. So if we go with poverty reduction, then climate risk and social protection will never integrate. Like, it will take longer for us to integrate it. If we understand that actually what we're doing is risk mitigation with the consequence that poverty is reduced, the impact of a shock like a climate shock is reduced, the adaptation and mitigation capacity of people as a whole is increased, then yes, the consequence would still be poverty reduction, but it won't be aimed at that. It won't be so like Rafique Saab said, poverty reduction is somewhere else, social protection is somewhere else. But again, we conceptualize it so that the two converge. But we'll have to change this thinking, because the reality of it is that things which are facing us are compelling us to think with a risk proofing of our future social policies, if you will. So thank you so much, and thank you for the question.
Thank you, Shirin. Rafique Saab, आप हैं हमारे साथ?
जी सर, I'm here.
जी रफीक मियां, ये हम बात करते हैं, आपने इनइक्वालिटी को दरमियान में लेके आए, तो देयर इज द क्वेश्चन कि जी आप इनइक्वालिटी रिडक्शन स्ट्रेटजी वुड रिजल्ट इन द लिबरेशन ऑफ रिसोर्सेज. आई मीन, आपके वेल्थ एक्यूमुलेशन है, if you want to reduce the equality, you have to do something with the wealth accumulation at the top tier. For example, an example has been given of the polluter pays principle, that if you want to have a climate justice, then you have to tax, or whatever way you do, you make the polluter pays. Now, inequality and poverty are the two sides of the same coin. So, is the Sindh government thinking of reducing inequality in such a way that it generates resources which are then used to clear the baggage of poverty, which is tremendous in Sindh? You see, Mr. Ali Shehzad talked about social protection as a ladder for social development. Many countries have huge social security funds which are used for that. Or traditionally, you would just continue depending on the traditional tax and divisible pool resources. Are there some more innovative ways to reduce poverty and tax the super rich and use that to help the poor?
Thank you very much, Dr. Saab, and very pertinent question. This is classic answer. Classic example is Indus Delta, Indus Basin Delta, and this is one of the amazing thing the government of Sindh did, that जब गवर्नमेंट ऑफ सिंध प्लान कि जी जो मैंग्रोव्स हैं उसको जब ग्रो होंगे एज अ कोस्टल एरिया ऑफ द प्रोविंस, so that would reduce the pollutants, and by that logic you will have a fund under climate fund stream internationally. So by that logic we were able, takriban $14 million we received as a क्या कहते हैं उसको carbon trading. We did the carbon trading, and that $14 million would be spent on the vulnerable communities of the coastal area. That we have done it, and that is being applauded all over the world and in Pakistan. Of course, when we talk about economic management, again, the point is Ali and Shiri, of course, the convergence. But I don't know whether how long we would wait for that convergence, because the straight-jacketed frames in the country like Pakistan, when post 18th Amendment, post pre-18th Amendment, when we talk about economic management, who manages the economy in Pakistan? Can the province manage economy of Pakistan? Of course, the Asad Shah Sahib is here and he could better talk on it. But the point is, yes, province can tax, कर सकता है, province can tax, and वो जो पैसा है then could help reduce inequality in the province. But so far, at least I haven't heard about that in the province. लेकिन जो कार्बन ट्रेडिंग जो इंडस बेसिन में हुआ है जो $14 million, and that has been received by the government of Sindh, and that money would be channelized for reducing the vulnerabilities of the communities of the coastal area. So that is on, and that is being practiced in Sindh.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that's a very good example, and if Asad Ali Shah Sahib is around, he can also comment. You see, once the subject is squarely provincialized and the financing is also with the provinces, then provinces would have their own targets also in terms of social protection. And there, I think this whole question of defining social protection in a much less nebulous way, that what is social protection, where does a certain province want to go in terms of different indicators. I think, Shahzad, are you with us, Asad Ali Shahzad? I think Shahzad is not with us. My last question to both the panelists deals with the decision to make provincial socioeconomic registries. Now, what the experience of Pakistan with National Socioeconomic Registry is that there is a great keenness to know what the poor households have in terms of assets, and you see, we do a very good work on perhaps breaching the privacy of the poor households while trying to capture their real economic standing, and as you go up the ladder, up the pyramid, our keenness reduces, and we have a very little idea of the kind of wealth that exists in Pakistan. And then now with the dynamic, our own understanding at SPRC is that since the federal government has introduced the dynamic registry, now the more smart people are going every day to this office to get them enrolled also, and there is a whole play of discretion there. Ms. Shirin, you talked about the possible public interest or pressure in terms of development of social protection policies. Why don't we have that in the country? Is it to do with the charity-based approach, that once you have a charity-based program, people would only come to ask for more charity? Was it on any right-based system? Then people would take interest. I mean, it could if the contribution is coming, let's say, from the ordinary citizens in some kind of insurance model to avert the risk, they would take more interest in that, or would take interest in the way Old Age Benefit Institute has spent their monies. There is a question from the audience, which again I would like Rafique to address about the Old Age Benefit Institute. Has it been Sindh established its own kind of EOBI? So first to Mr. Rafique and then to Mr. Shirin.
Dr. Sab, you know very well, this controversy is on again between government, Sindh and government of Pakistan, how to, even transition this EOBI. So we have got, as I shared already, the Department of Empowering People with Disabilities, but the EOBI is still there. Of course, the SESI and the Labour Department, Government of Sindh, has been working since 1970, and that has been working for long. But the discussion was, and the discussion is, and the discourse is, of course, as Ali eloquently put it, the convergence. Whether we like it or not, how the time it would take us to convert, and we all realize that what social protection system we should have. But right now, it's still on, and there is the tension between federation and the province, and how to reconcile social protection system per se, and how to address the problem being faced by the person with disability or the older age. Though I share my perspective on when I understand myself as old of the 60, the state protects me, but now the state understand. So that should not be, the non-contributory anymore. So the government has legislated that even my pension would be contributory from now onward. So it's a long way to go. But of course, the discourse is on, the people are discussing this, and you have it in Sindh for so many times to draw attention of the government to that particular issue. So we're here to articulate and put it across in an effective manner. But the challenge is still on, no matter the 18th Amendment has been passed. So this is my take on this.
Thank you very much. Are you sure that your government has asked for the contributory pension or somebody else?
Who asked, but that has been done.
Ms. Shiri, it's over to you for. I have summarized multiple questions into one complex question, particularly dealing with registry, lack of public pressure to have better. I think both of these questions need actually big time discussion in Pakistan. Why this insistence on having socioeconomic registry by the state functionaries, breaching the privacy of individuals of certain social classes, and why there is little public pressure or public interest in devising more robust social protection systems. Ms. Shirin, it's over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Saab, for the question, but thank you, Rafique Saab, for making it a lot easier for me to answer this actually. And वही बात है कि हम यहाँ पे बात तो कर सकते हैं, but yes, there are practical challenges, and I'll take it back to कहते हैं कि every good discussion is a circle. तो जहाँ से रफीक साहब ने बात शुरू की थी कि भाई I'm in a more challenging situation than you are. वो I think even practically in terms of practicing social protection भी, I completely appreciate those challenges and रियल पॉलिटिक इफ यू विल कि वो एग्जिस्ट करती है, हम उसको इग्नोर नहीं कर सकते. सिर्फ इतनी सी बात जो आप जहाँ पे इसको लेके आए हैं, आई थिंक वो बहुत जरूरी है याद रखना, क्योंकि वो जो पब्लिक सेंटिमेंट वाली बात है उससे वो जाके मिलती है, विच इज दैट नो मैटर हाउ वी पुट इट, वही बात, उसको हम सोशल सिक्योरिटी कहें, सोशल प्रोटेक्शन कहें, सोशल वेलफेयर कहें, सोशल डेवलपमेंट कहें, द बेसिक ग्राउंडिंग इज इन वन क्वेश्चन. और वो क्वेश्चन ये है, व्हाट इज द रिलेशनशिप बिटवीन द सिटीजनरी एंड द स्टेट. वो सवाल यही है। अब जैसा से आप कह रहे हैं कि उन्होंने मुझे भी कहा कि अब आप कंट्रीब्यूटरी दे, अब वो क्या है, दिस इज बेसिकली सेइंग दिस इज द सोशल कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एंड दिस इज हाउ वी आर डेवलपिंग इट एंड दिस इज हाउ वी आर टेकिंग इट फॉरवर्ड। उसमें अब जाहिर है जो मेरे जैसे प्रैक्टिशनर्स होंगे उनके लिए कहना आसान है, लेकिन उसको किस तरह से आपने एक्चुअली ऑपरेशनलाइज करना है, उसमें बहुत से क्वेश्चंस हैं, बट आई व्हिच इज दैट लेट्स गो बैक टू द यूडीएचआर। The Universal Declaration of Human Rights says कि social security is a right for every person. ठीक है, ये और हमारा जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है 73 का, वो है ना अभी। तो जब तक है तब तक वी हैव टू से कि भाई द फंडामेंटल राइट्स का जो चैप्टर है वो उसी के ऊपर बेस्ड है, वो यूडीएचआर के ऊपर बेस्ड है। आप देखें, आई मीन इट्स यू वुडंट फाइंड इतना अच्छा actually fundamental rights type chapter in just any constitution that you pick up. Obviously, constitutions are all well thought out and good documents, not to put that behind us, but to take pride in what we have. But having said that, just as देखें, जब आप उसको राइट के तौर पे लेके जाएंगे तो सबका स्टेक है, जब आप उसको पॉवर्टी से टाई करते जाएंगे स्टेक नहीं रहेगा। आई विल कोट, आई कांट से इट, आई विल कोट अमर्त्य सेन हियर, जिसकी एक सेंटेंस सम्स इट ऑल: benefits that are designed for poor are poor benefits. ये हम अपने पब्लिक ट्रांसपोर्ट में भी देखते हैं, ये हम अपनी किसी भी पब्लिक सर्विस में आप देख लें। जहां आप प्राइवेट हॉस्पिटल लाएंगे, पब्लिक हॉस्पिटल की कॉस्ट पे लाएंगे, जहां आप पब्लिक कोई और प्राइवेट सर्विस लाएंगे, पब्लिक सर्विस की कॉस्ट पे लाएंगे। द थिंग टू डू इज टू नो कि कहां पे राइट्स हैं जो पब्लिक गुड भी नहीं बन सकते, वो राइट ही रहेगा, और कहां पे पब्लिक गुड है वर्सेस private good. I'm not saying everything has to be a public good, but there has to be a distinction between public good and private good. So I think that's from the policy perspective. From the people's perspective, I often think about this, and maybe one of these days, Dr. Saab, we'll have this conversation, and some of the people who are here as attendees as well, which is कि अगर हम सिर्फ जो fundamental rights में Article 14 है, which is dignity. If we do a class action, which is not called class action in our parlance, but for a class action for, let's say, BIS beneficiaries on dignity, the way we wait, the way we do all of that, I mean, there are a lot of ways to get that public sentiment going. हमारा मसला क्या है fundamental rights के साथ? I'll stop here, and social protection is also the same, कि आपको actually हम बात करते हैं कि social protection को rights में डालें, बिल्कुल डालें, मुझे कोई इससे एतराज नहीं है, लेकिन I think Article 14 already, I think Article 14 ही है जो dignity पे है, और already exist inviolable right to dignity every citizen. ठीक है जी, तो उसके ऊपर ही आप इतना कुछ कर सकते हैं जिससे बहुत से सिस्टम, बहुत सी चीजें, ये यूनिवर्सल होना चाहिए, डिसेबिलिटी के लिए होना चाहिए, सारी चीजों को आप कर सकते हैं। बट द प्रॉब्लम विद दैट, along with a lot of other fundamental rights within the constitution, is that there is not enough case law. Because case law is what makes it easy for then people like Rafique Saab and Shehzad and others who want to do something but cannot do it if the practicality of it has not been tested out. So I think as citizens, as concerned citizens, one thing that we can sort of start seriously thinking about is that is there something there? So again, from the policy perspective, there is a whole, you come back to what the social contract is, what are our rights, what is a public good, what is a private good, and what should never be a public good should always be a right, and what can never become a private good should always be a public good. So I think these are important questions, and these are questions that practically people are asking. And from our perspective, from the public perspective, I think we have the scope within some of these fundamental rights. But the thing is that somebody has to bring it forward so that there is enough practical realities being addressed there for practitioners to take it forward. We can't expect कि एक policy आ गई तो उसकी वजह से सब कुछ हो जाएगा. मेरा ख्याल है हम भी कभी-कभी जाती कर देते हैं with people who are on the other side of the desk and expect कि बस public servants are supposed to do everything, and वो होता नहीं है. I for one appreciate the realpolitik, but again, terms matter, language matter, policy outcomes जो हम अपने लिए set करते हैं, they matter, and therefore I always keep talking about these things, realizing well that we've come a long way, we have a long way to go, but so far as the कि वो फेडरल से प्रोविंस तक जा रहा है, प्रोविंस अपने काम खुद भी कर रहा है, सिर्फ मल्टीलैटरल्स या डोनर सपोर्ट से नहीं कर रहा, अपने पैसों से भी कर रहा है. These are all good directions. So I'll stop here. I know I haven't answered, like you said, these can be like separate discussions altogether, but I hope that I've given some food for thought at least, and happy to keep discussing them in all forums. And thank you once again for having me.
Thank you very much. Well, this is true that these are big topics, but you see the question of dignity. हमारे रिवायत में तो हमेशा से सफेद पोशी जो है उसको बचा के रखना has been a key consideration, and we are doing exactly opposite. जिनके एसेट्स और घरों के बारे में हमें ज्यादा पता होना चाहिए, हमें कुछ पता नहीं है. जिनका पर्दा रखना चाहिए वो हम उनको बाजारों में मुश्तहर करते फिरते हैं, और ये टेक्नोलॉजी की एक्साइटमेंट में हम हर चीज को ओपन. अभी मिस अलिशबा ने भी जो बताया कि जी आपने जो शिरीन आपने बात की कि वी गेट कैरिड अवे बाय दिस टेक्नोलॉजिकल इम्प्रूवमेंट, वो फाइन, अच्छी बात है, लेकिन फॉर्म और सब्सटेंस को देखें कि ये इंटीग्रेशन के नाम पे टू इंसिस्ट के जी स्पेशल CNIC होगा तो बेनिफिट मिलेगा, आपने 99% लोगों को एक्सक्लूड कर दिया. तो वी नीड टू गेट रियल. Before I say the very last sentence, Shirin, would you like to add something?
Sorry, I just realized that I missed your question actually on the social registry, because I wanted to capitalize on the opening that Rafique Saab had given me. Just on the social registry, I think look, उसमें बात वही आ जाती है फॉर्म ओवर फंक्शन. अगर आपने पॉलिसी पॉवर्टी बेस्ड रखनी है तो आपको सोशल रजिस्ट्री का फायदा होगा क्योंकि आप पॉवर्टी रैंकिंग कर रहे हैं. अगर आपने अपनी पॉलिसी कुछ और रखनी है तो आपको तो सोशल रजिस्ट्री आपका टूल नहीं है. So please, I will just say, please define what your policy direction is, what your policy outcome is. उसके बाद अगर वो टूल फिट होता है बेशक आप उसको लाएं, लेकिन अगर वो टूल नहीं फिट होता तो प्लीज आप उसको पुशबैक दे. भले वो जितनी भी दुनिया के मुल्कों में हो रहा हो, मैं इस वक्त जहां पे हूं वहां पे भी एक पुशबैक मिल रहा है. और मैंने इसका नाम like you know Lista Hannan is getting a pushback. So these things are happening. One thing, क्योंकि SPRC बूढ़े लोगों के साथ काम करता है, तो एक चीज बहुत क्लियर है कि क्योंकि आप इनकम नहीं देख सकते तो आप प्रॉक्सी लेते हैं कंजम्पशन. आप कंजम्पशन भी पूरी तरह नहीं देख सकते तो आप प्रॉक्सी लेते हैं एसेट. अच्छा, एसेट जो होता है ना वो बूढ़े लोगों के पास होता है. अब वो काम करे ना करे, लेकिन बूढ़े लोगों के पास क्या नहीं होती उस वक्त? इनकम नहीं होती, कंजम्पशन के लिए इनकम नहीं होती. तो व्हाट यू डू इज कि यू ऑलमोस्ट अनफेयरली लीव देम आउट. तो आप जब भी तो इस तरह की चीजें जब आप टूल्स के बारे में मेजर्स के बारे में सीख लेते हैं. अब अगर आपकी पॉलिसी डायरेक्शन ही है कि आपने वर्किंग एज के लोगों को सिर्फ करना है और पॉवर्टी बेस करना है, तो मे बी द रजिस्ट्री विल वर्क फॉर यू. वी कैन कीप टॉकिंग अबाउट इट, बट बात वहीं पे सोहेल साहब आ जाती है कि अ डिजिटल सोल्यूशन इज नॉट अ पॉलिसी सोल्यूशन. फॉर्म फॉलोज फंक्शन. So once you know what your policy direction is, by all means, there are so many tools that one can pick and choose from, but it is not at all, this a fit for all solution. And I think given the short responsiveness that we need in the system, it's not at all a system that we should go with. आपकी जो privacy वाले issues हैं, वो I completely agree, but I just wanted to bring it from that other perspective as well, that even from a completely social protection perspective, we have to first define where we want to take all of this. Thank you.
उसमें देखिए शिरी, आप work is the best proxy to know the socio-economic situation of any person. So that's where we should focus. Rafique, आप कुछ ऐड करना चाह रहे?
मैं सिर्फ ये कहना चाह रहा हूँ कि फॉर एग्जाम्पल जब रजिस्ट्री का, मैंने भी मिस कर दिया आपका सवाल, जब पहली दफा सोशल प्रोटेक्शन सोचा जा रहा था सिंध में, the discussion was that we should have our own registry. Later on, it was realized that let's build on an SER. लेकिन under discussion, जब ये बात और deep हुई, and we met a lot of people around, and we met you people like you, तो एक concept आया जो World Bank का again the concept is a unified beneficiary registry. जब यूनिफाइड बेनिफिशियरी रजिस्ट्री की बात आई तो द फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन आई आस्क्ड माय टीम व्हेन आई जॉइंड एज द सेक्रेटरी सोशल प्रोटेक्शन डिपार्टमेंट, व्हाट डज इट मीन बाय, जो शीरी और जो आप कहने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, जो मैं समझ रहा हूँ, समटाइम्स व्हाट वी डू, जब भी कोई हम सिस्टम डेवलप करने के उसमें आते हैं, प्रोसेस में आते हैं, एज अ पब्लिक सर्विस, एज अ पब्लिक सर्वेंट, हमें ऐसा लगता है कि एज इफ कि हमें लोगों को पकड़ना है कि कहाँ कहाँ से वो बेनिफिट ले रहे हैं, ठीक है। सो दैट ये पहले अलिशबा ने भी एक बात कही कि क्या वो जो डिसेबल है, अगर वो कैश ट्रांसफर ले रहा है तो क्या वो डिसेबिलिटी अलाउंस नहीं ले सकता, काइंड ऑफ। as a public servant psyche, I must say I'm a public servant, a civil servant, as if के जो रिसोर्स हैं, जैसे आर्टिकल 38 जब बात करता है सोशो इकोनॉमिक प्रमोशन ऑफ सोशो इकोनॉमिक वेलबींग, उसमें एक बड़ा अच्छा इंटरेस्टिंग है, बाकी भी सेक्शंस है, लेकिन एक सेक्शन बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग है कि आप जो भी डिजाइन करोगे, ये इकोनॉमिक प्रिंसिपल भी है, वी ऑल एग्री कि जिसके रिसोर्सेज हैं, अगर रिसोर्सेज आपको अलाउ करते हैं तो यू विल डू समथिंग, अदरवाइज यू विल नॉट। तो विद दैट साइकी, अनफॉर्चुनेटली एज अ सिविल सर्वेंट, व्हाट वी अंडरस्टैंड, लेट्स सी के किसी को ज्यादा तो नहीं मिल रहा है, and very aptly put up by sum up by Shiri, the benefits designed for the poor. Unfortunately, that principle help us understand how we design everything, and even social protection. Unfortunately, so this is an opportunity for us to understand. Let's not design for the poor so that it should not be the poor. Thank you.
Yeah, Rafique, thank you very much. I'm glad that we're ending at a rather critical note that in the coming year, we should all apply ourselves on engendering more critical debates on a system which is there, which is not really a system, but our income transfer programs are now around for the last 15 years. This is a high time that we pause and we revisit the basics. You've rightly said that where is this tendency coming from that we should stop misuse? Your effective coverage is so little and you're so much obsessed with the wrong usage. You see, there is now evidence from US that they spend much more resources on the possible misuse of food stamps than actually they try to extend the real coverage. I'll just end today's webinar while thanking Ms. Shirin, Mr. Rafique, Shaikh, and Mr. Shehzad, who unfortunately had to go for another meeting, and all the participants, that let us make a resolve. This is the last day of 2024 for the next year and beyond, that let's try to have a system in Pakistan where one person does not sponsor the progress of another person. So that if the people who believe in this honestly, when they would design the systems, I think they would be able to design much better systems. Importing the systems is not a problem. You can always copy what is happening in other countries, but then you should evolve. I think even Brazilian system has come a long way. This was one of the major model for us. So we continue with our engagement with the subject, which is extremely important. And Social Protection Resource Center would be continuing with this effort, with this struggle to provide more robust foundations to our social protection systems based on a sound policy. And in the light of that, the services which should be there. I again profusely thank all the participants who have participated, and the guest speakers. Alishba, thank you very much. Alishba needs double thanks, because not only that she tried to kind of share the glimpse of a very large program in a very short time in a very good way. Their team has organized this conference in a very befitting way. So bravo, thank you very much, Alishba, and thank you all, and wish you all the best in your life, family life, and a very happy new year.